Hello and welcome to the Morning Skate podcast. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell, assuming one of us has not been traded, as we go into the Thursday, March 7th NHL Daily Fantasy Slate. DJ, what a day. I mean, you'd think today was deadline day with all the action.
Yeah, it's pretty funny how that works now. Where I mean, it feels like every year deadline day gets a little bit worse, and this year it's what's going to be left. I mean, deals that we felt were not. I mean, if anyone would have said Bowen Byram's going to get moved, I think I would have been like, I mean, maybe, but like not for Casey Middlestat. Just some weird stuff too. A lot of fun and a lot of stuff to already happened by the time you're listening to this. So as far as I mean the trades, but like the teams that are already playing, and we're gonna have a lot to cover. I do think this is a good time to shout out our sponsor DraftKings, because I'll tell you one thing: the lines didn't move all day on anyone, and like players were moved and just nothing. And not that there was anything that was Casey Middlestat, right? I mean, that's a player on Buffalo, the guy leading them in points. And I was like, I'm just going to track it. Tage Thompson's minus 130 for a point, or 135. And it just never moved. And it's like, I know that's not a huge deal, but I just feel like it would move in another sport. Like I maybe they have action, which I don't know, whatever. But again, I do think bigger things will happen to just that. Keep an eye on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely going to be a reactionary type slate. There are several teams that are possibly integrating new players. Of course, we don't know how teams will be replacing some of these traded players. So, like those things are just things we got to keep track of throughout the day and heading into warm ups on Thursday. But yeah, Thursday there's 12 games. So with no further ado, we'll save the trade discussion for the Discord. If you're really curious about how we think about whatever trade went down, I guess you can ask us over in there. But I don't want this to be a 6-hour show because a lot of stuff has already happened here on Wednesday. So we'll touch on it from a daily fantasy standpoint as we are able to. But DJ, let's go through the games here.
Game one, Toronto at Boston. We just saw this matchup very recently. Toronto's on a back-to-back. Boston minus 142 at home to the plus 120 Maple Leafs, 6.5 over under. Game two is Montreal at Carolina. That is a 6 over under on the minus 120. Carolina is a minus 310 favorite, so pretty large there. Philadelphia is at Florida. They did trade Sean Walker. They are huge underdogs. Panthers, I believe, 6 in a row, minus 225 is 6.5 over under. And Owen Tippett revenge. Edmonton at the Columbus Blue Jackets. What a comeback, by the Oilers against Boston last time out. They go into Columbus, minus 258 favorites. I believe it's our highest total on the slate, 6.5 minus 130. Just scrolling through quickly. Yes, it is. The St. Louis Blues will go to New Jersey to take on the the hemorrhaging New Jersey Devils. I don't know what the right word is really at this point, but they are on life support and praying that Florida beats the Flyers and they can catch up some ground there. Minus 180 home favorites, 6.5 total. The Washington Capitals will go to the Pittsburgh Penguins to play the We Used to Be Great Bowl, the game that everyone is, used to be excited for, Ovi versus Crosby, but now a little bit sad. Minus 170 favorite Penguins, 6.5 is plus money. I scroll to the next section. It's the Flames, who just as we started recording, traded Noah Hanifin. They didn't trade him to Tampa Bay, but they will play Tampa Bay in the rematch of the 2003 or 4 Stanley Cup final. I think it's 3. Tampa is a minus 148 favorite, 6.5 over under. Buffalo on a back-to-back, going to Nashville to take on the Predators, who have been red hot until they finally drop one on the Nick Suzuki overtime winner. Nashville still a minus 155 favorite, 6.5 over unders, minus 125. Minnesota at Arizona. It seemed like no one was ever going to lose to the Blackhawks at home. Arizona said, hold my beer. We're going to just not show up. They are plus 124 at home to Minnesota, minus 148, 6 over under. Vegas just acquired Mr. Noah Hanifin, and they take on the Vancouver Canucks, who there's lots of rumors out there of trades that could still be yet to come. Almost a pick 'em, minus 115 for Vegas, who just has not been playing very well. And it's a 6 over under. Keep an eye on Alec Martinez, who did not practice, and it almost feels like that could be a reason for the trade.
He went on LTIR, so he's gone. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I did not know he went on LTIR. Okay.
Yeah.
That answers that. Last two games. Ottawa at LA, minus 192. Ottawa's on a back-to-back. It's 6.5 over-under. And the Islanders get to go to San Jose into the Shark Tank, which sounds a lot scarier than it is. Minus 258 favorites for the Chalk Islanders potentially. That is all. Don't jump right into Toronto, Boston, or do you want to say two more things?
Yeah, two more things. Interesting. Certainly have one thing, that this show is sponsored by DraftKings, and more specifically, the DraftKings Sportsbook. We know hockey games move fast, almost as fast as the trade deadline. Am I right, people? But with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can score faster than anything happening on the ice. This week, new customers can bet $5 and get 200 instantly in bonus bets. I was just combing through some of these lines here. The one that stood out to me, honestly, was Washington being such a heavy dog on the road in Pittsburgh. Minus 170 on the Penguins, plus 142 on Washington. We'll talk a bit about Washington, and I kind of like them from a DFS standpoint, but I feel like that's pretty good odds there. Pittsburgh, I mean, they're pretty terrible at the moment, with everyone being traded, apparently. All right, anyway. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app with code THPN. New customers bet just $5 on the NHL and get 200 instantly in bonus bets. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, code THPN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-878-9777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario, bonus bet expire. Wow, I can't do that phrasing today. 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. All right. So yes, DraftKings, thank you for sponsoring this show. And let's get into business here. So yeah, first up we have Toronto at Boston. Am I crazy? Boston just blew them out on Monday, right?
Was it? Yeah, I think it was basically a blowout. I mean, they won decently big. They only, I know the kind of the thing was like
they played
Boston
each other.
only allowed. Yeah, they did. Yeah, I said that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking like, did they really blow them out? I mean, it was. I think it was 3-1. I'm about to pull it up now. I realized I didn't have Hockey Viz up, but I mean, for sure.
I think it was 4.
Maybe. Okay, it doesn't matter. The point I was going to make here is that I feel like the underlyings in this game lead me to, is this interesting? But then my brain kind of clicks again, and I think, do I want Boston to hurt me again? I mean, I was touting playing Edmonton 1, and on maybe a 2-game slate, it almost got there with a Zach Hyman 0. But on a bigger slate, it completely nuked me to smithereens. So I don't know. Boston might just be pretty good, and I'm really going back and forth.
In all honesty, what happened was McDavid and Draisaitl were close to the optimal. If you played Edmonton, like those two, if you played McDry with Dallas 3, that was at the top of the leaderboards. So I don't necessarily think it was a mistake. Like that'll happen when you're Zach Hyman and you rely on guys to set you up. Sometimes they set other people up, and that's sort of the risk you run with with the Hyman experience. Anyway, you may continue.
I guess at the end of the day here, I feel like I'm not going to end up on this game, but I wouldn't at all say that you were dumb to be here. And I think that if ownership on Toronto in a back-to-back game against Boston, even though it's a home back-to-back, I don't think it's going to be very high. I could see people actually using Boston a little bit more, just because again the underlying seem good, but they really seem good for goals to be scored. So all of this again to say, not my favorite game, probably not going to play it, but I could see why you did. Pass it back to you after giving zero value.
Sure. So Toronto on a back-to-back is obviously a pretty meaningful distinction to me. Boston was very disappointing against Edmonton. It was sort of the, I'm not sure if it was just the, we have a slight lead, let's just pack it in. But really nothing much happened. It was by sheer force of McDavid and Draisaitl that really anything happened in that game. So, chasing the Boston stuff after what they did to Toronto, I guess you could make an argument that that's okay, but like Boston was not generating anything against Edmonton, and that's a huge concern for me. If Toronto's not going to be pushing play themselves on the second half of back-to-back. And the point that I will continue to sort of try to drive home when I think of it and can make it cogently is that we're talking about guys who, when you click them in, Matthews or Pasternak specifically here, they require massive sacrifices in the rest of your lineup. Like, you can work in values like, I don't know, Brusque, if he manages to not get traded for what feels like the 5th season in a row where he's been on the block at the deadline. Like Zacha, I think got there last. Yeah, he scored their only goal last game. Yeah. So like there are cheaper options on the Boston side at least that like you can offset some of this cost, but you're really not getting in multiple studs anymore. Like, it's new this year that these guys are this high, but last year it was, 8,500. Oh my God, McDavid's 8,700. That's crazy. Like, we're just not seeing the same sort of ceiling like that's been shattered, obviously, with Matthews hitting 10,000 and multiple guys in the upper 9K range. So I'm more apt than most, I think, to just fade this range altogether. And so while this game has a little bit of intrigue, I do think with some of the context of it being a back-to-back and there being other games that I'd like to spend up on better, that I'm just sort of, at least using a lot of caution and reacting to news more than I am coming into the slate with the idea of I want to play one of these two teams. So is there one spot in this game you would attack?
The Boston was off on Wednesday. Yeah, Boston was off on Wednesday. If this is the iteration of the lineup, I'm just completely off of them, and I would go the other way here. Zacha, Heinen, and Pasternak, like you said, Zacha had the only goal at 5-on-5. Heinen and Zacha not on the top power play. Makes it really clunky, especially if you're playing Pasternak with the idea of like, these guys coming with him. It might just not happen. But if they change that lineup, if they go back to Marchand, Coyle, Pasternak or something, I'll give it a second look because I do think that gives you a bit more of a ceiling, of course. But again, at this current iteration, no. On the other side of things, I think I could be convinced as I think Tavares is starting to get back that top power play role to consider someone like him at 5,900, but that's barring us seeing he is getting that top power play role for sure. That might be something that I take another look at, but I think I'm overall fading. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. That's an interesting note on Tavares. He's dropped below 6,000 for what feels like the first time in ever. So yeah, if he's like really back in that firm role, he's obviously a guy who can, score two goals.
McCann's showing up here because he's actually been good. So down the list a little bit. Yeah, if that is out there, and you get Tavares on that top power play, I think that's fine. And Boston, it's been goaltending. I mean, it's just been all goaltending. I mean, they're good enough defensively. I'm not trying to throw too much shade there, but like, man, they win 4-1 against Toronto. Toronto hits 3 points. Yeah. They, it's just 3.4 expected goals, and the goalies are bailing them out. But we can move on because I'm obviously not playing that game.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned McMahon. Like, I don't know, he kind of stinks. We know Calle Jarnkrok, though, is a good quality NHL player, and I think this is only one game, so like, he's not going to be this guy. But that third line, Tavares, Jarnkrok, and McMahon, does have some decent underlyings. Yeah. Okay, sure. Exactly, I can get behind that, and we track that throughout the day. Next up, we have Montreal and Carolina. I gotta say, this Montreal team is really putting in the work. Like they are playing decent hockey, which is kind of a surprise given their roster. But you pull up the sheet, and there's really no like, oh yeah, this Montreal team is flatlining. Like that's just not happened. That they've been above average defensively, getting a bit scorned by goaltending, but it's not even that bad, all things considered. And they're producing offensively. They're generating chances and they're scoring goals. I don't necessarily think that this is the matchup you want to eat into, but if Carolina is going to get, hefty ownership because they have a 6.5 game total and they're at home, like I would be pretty reticent to chase at that into any sort of ownership on a 12-game slate where there's going to be, so many spots that like, yeah, ownership doesn't really matter, but like also why eat any when I don't really feel confident about one, the matchup, and two, how things are actually going to happen, goal scoring wise. Because we know this Carolina team does not centralize their offense. So, DJ, anything on this game that you are looking into from a fantasy perspective?
I'm actually less interested in this game than the first one. I will, I guess, give myself one pat in the back before, and just I probably brought this up before, and I think one of my biggest regrets in life will be not putting my entire mortgage on Montreal minus 105 to have more points than Chicago in the regular season. Just the dumbest line ever that I was like, I'm definitely jumping on this. I put like $50 and now I'm sitting here just whatever. But because again, I thought this is a bit of a better team. It's not a good team. It's a horrendous matchup. I'm not playing into it. But on the other side of things, I don't really know why I'm going to go after Carolina when I respect this Montreal team and I actually think that they can play. If I, gun to head, it's really only a consideration towards something on Carolina. I really don't even know what, though. It's very easy just to say, screw it, I'm not touching this game, to stay away from what, again, I believe will be some level of ownership on whatever Aho plays with, which will probably be Svechnikov and Teravainen. I think I just stay away. And I let other people chase it, and they'll play Aho, and they'll have, 12 points, and that's fine. I can survive that.
Yep. So I guess the thing with Carolina is one, the news, but two is that you still get this value in Bunting, Drury, and I guess to some extent HS, though of course he's cooled off considerably, which like it's fair. He can't be a he cannot be a 9-shot on goal like hat trick guy every night. So if you want to stack around Marty Nachas and his friends, I think that's okay. You're not eating a ton of, you're not eating a ton of price wise to do that. And you're getting some decent exposure throughout the lineup. But I do have some pretty strong reservations about playing 7K Sebastian Aho and basically saying, I don't want access to the Floridas, the Edmontons, without basically in what I don't really feel is a great draw. So, yeah, I don't know. Anything on defense? I know Montreal has several cheap guys. Arbor Jack guy's been getting owned around the industry. I don't really know if that means much of anything. But just there's a lot of cheap guys getting some minutes on both sides of the ice here, in all honesty. So anything further? Just take us to the next game.
Jack Guy's getting the run. He's playing with Savard. They both love blocking shots, and they put him out there in positions to do so. And I wouldn't fault you for playing Arbor Jack Guy and saying I'm trying to lock in a floor with the blocks bonus. Okay. I mean, could you consider it with Joshua Waugh? I guess, but I think you're kind of setting yourself up for failure just to play Edmonton. But I think that is a way to do it. That I don't know what comes in on it, but I think the next matchup is much more interesting. So we can get over to the first game I'm actually interested in playing in the Philly, Florida.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, Florida adding Vladimir Tarasenko is probably going to boot Nick Cousins off that second line. Now there's no guarantee he plays on Thursday. So I believe Tarasenko will have to clear like a work visa, though I'm not sure how that works because obviously Tarasenko played in the US for however many years he's been in St. Louis and then the Rangers. So I'm not sure if he will be cleared to play. Keep an eye on that. If Tarasenko plays, I think he's an awesome option. I mean, we just saw Nick Cousins double dong on a slate where I said, if I play Matthew Tkachuk, I'm just going to play Nick Cousins. And DJ, what did I not do?
You didn't play Nick Cousins.
I did not play Nick Cousins. I played 3,300 Lars Eller because he was on the top line as a one-off instead of just saying, you know what, I'll play a fourth wing on Florida. And guess what? That would have left room for Wyatt Johnson and Logan Stankoven at the center position had I had a brain. But I do not. So we are remaining poor. Yes, hee-haw, the soundtrack of the Motorscape podcast. Otherwise, clearly the top line is also an option. I just frankly don't really understand why Matthew Tkachuk got cheaper. I mean,
absurd.
I just said the ceiling, of these prices, 10,000 Matthews, like the ceiling is rising. why is Matthew Tkachuk not a 9K player? I don't know. So yeah, the matchup of Philly is not one that it's necessarily like ripe for domination on the Florida end of things, but for the prices that you're paying for the second line, you don't really need that dominance. And quite frankly, you know, the power play alone can get Matthew Tkachuk there. So Tkachuk's a great play in, I think, the reformat. We are expecting Konechny to return here. I don't know if that matters for you, but any interest on the Florida's or on the Philly side, or is it just a Florida thing for you?
I just don't think I've said it for like weeks now and just continued to be correct to do so. I'm not playing against Florida. It does make it interesting though, you know, connecting and tip it together. It feels pretty good. Like connecting at 6,600 does. I mean, it's not great. It's not terrible. It's probably about correct. I'm going to fade it. I'm just going to stay away from it. I'm going to probably go with whatever the chalk lines ends up being. If it's Tarasenko, I like it even more. And again, I'm okay with playing Sam Bennett at 5K. I know he just went out there and finally had it the true dud. But yeah, I'm okay with playing that full line for sure. I think that'll be, you know, my focal point. And I almost worry though that we turn some of the cards over and that ends up being pretty chalky, especially if it's Tarasenko. So if I get a really strong feeling that it is chalky, then I'll capitulate. I think I'm using that word correctly, and go over to the line one. First, did I use the word right?
Yeah, no, I mean, kind of. I mean, capitulating usually means there's someone telling you to do something and you're saying no.
Well,
And
the ownership is
could
the
sit here
ownership's
and tell
telling
you to
me
play Reinhart and Verhaeghe.
Yeah, the ownership's
Quite
like,
frankly, though, the main, yeah, well,
just go.
Again, capitulation is more of an action. Yeah, Barkov is, you know, Barkov is a great player, but it's one of those situations where if I'm playing Reinhart Verhaeghe, I'd much rather have Matthew Tkachuk. I get that it makes things complicated as far as filling out another stack, but there's options here. You can manage it. So I think that's what I would do if I were wanting to get a piece of Florida one. I would just play Tkachuk with Reinhart Verhaeghe and just say, you know, hey, this is what Moots did on Tuesday, therefore it's guaranteed to work the very next slate. It kind of worked out, you know. It's but in any case, on the Philly front,
just pull both teams up. Okay, you can put them both up. Go to the next tab after winger. Montour ? Do we want to get hurt again or nah?
We can. Yeah, no, I mean, he's been quite good. Like, you know, there was the thing where the regression was obviously coming because of his on ice point percentage being just ridiculously low. You know, he does, I think, carry more risk than most players in his range. But quite frankly, you know, people play Quinn Hughes. Like, it doesn't really feel that different from like, yeah, I'm getting a dynamic player on a dynamic power play. And yeah, I'm paying for it, but I'm also, you know, paying for some of that in the downside risk. Whereas, you know, like obviously Mackenzie Weegar has a hat trick this season, but like Brandon Montour, I think has a higher ceiling than Mackenzie Weegar, you know, whatever you want to use to cut off as like 75th percentile or something. So it doesn't really feel like an egregious price tag on Montour. But yes, he burned me badly on Tuesday, but I'm not letting that sort of seep in because I'm going to try and be on the Montour train to close out the year because this Florida team is awesome. You know, there's no getting around that. Owen Tippett, revenge spot. There we go. And
Sealer to IR after resigning. Like he resigned today, and I was like, wait, didn't I just see it was on IR? And it's like, oh yeah, both came out today. So and Walker traded, so they are down a lot of defensemen. I think you could reasonably, if you're like, I love Arbor Jack guy, I think you could even take a look here and say Ronnie Attard, who they did recall. Just because like who are they playing? Sanheim, Zamula, Stahl, York,
Adder. They're going to play Kent York. What is it again? No. I mean, that's
right. I just totally get it. Yeah,
is Adder even doing anything down here? 25 points, 46 games, 91 shots, not even 2 shots a game. Yeah, I don't think there's any ice time here for a rookie. I'd rather play Zamula, to be honest, and just say I'm going to try and get my power play point and move on.
I think there's dumber things than playing Cam York, to be honest. I think I'm just going to land there. I mean, he is a blocks bonus machine. If he gets a point,
that's right.
He's shooting.
He has,
yeah.
So clearly he has 3 goals in his last 5 games, none of those on the power play. So like, that's a bit unsustainable, but this is a guy who coming in was an offensive profile. Like, there's nothing in his prospect profile that's like, yeah, this dude's a rugged shot blocker. So I do think that's sort of interesting. 3,900, playing 26 minutes, like, he does have offensive upside in my opinion. So,
right.
Don't hate that. All right. Let's move on to Edmonton Columbus.
Yeah, this should be pretty quick and easy. Obviously, Edmonton's in an unbelievably good spot. They're much, 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 much better than Columbus. The top line is the top line. Draisaitl, Hyman, McDavid. It's all together. I do wonder. I'm just going to ask. I'm going to raise the question. Okay, I'm going to raise it. I'm going to double check really quickly before I raise it, though. Let me look. Yeah. So if you are on HockeyViz, do you have it up or no?
I do not.
So what I was thinking, just if you were gonna get crazy, okay, let's just pretend. Would you have any consideration of playing like Nugent Hopkins with Kane or no?
No.
All right.
I understand the thought process. For me, it's more an issue of like what realistically has to happen for that to be the winner. Like it just feels like you have to get so unbelievably lucky for that to be what you need to win. You're not really getting value in that you're paying, the average cost of a skater for
can you see
for the stack.
Let me know you can see my screen, by the way.
Yeah,
you can see
we
it.
can see you.
So this is what I kind of wanted to show was I was wondering, I was like, what about if Bouchard's playing with Kane and no, it's just the reddest, darkest, biggest Ekholm, Bouchard, McDavid, Hyman, Draisaitl, and they were trailing, a lot of that game. Maybe it's not always this bad, but it's just so concentrated in one spot. Like I raised it to you as sort of like a maybe I'm interested. I'm really not. I don't know how I get there on that. Like I can't do it. So okay, you can. Here, I'll just unshare. No, I'll add you back.
Yeah, I think hunting for value on Edmonton is just so hard when they're set up like this. Like if anything, I think I would try one-offs of guys. Like I think you can one-off Evander Kane, you can one-off Nugent Hopkins. In all honesty, I don't love it, but like at least there's the argument of okay, we know that there's for Evander there's the shot bonus potential, and for Nugent Hopkins there's the power play point potential, and we know that if they put up, let's say, one of those or two of those in Nugent Hopkins' case for power play points, they just need one more thing to happen to sort of get there, like individually. I don't think it's all that likely that Evander Kane hits a bonus and scores a goal and Nugent Hopkins gets there on his own without McDavid putting up a McDavid type slate. That just makes it not, renders it irrelevant. So yeah, I think you're threading too thin a needle to play the second line fully stacked. But I'm fine with one-offs. Otherwise, defense, Evan Bouchard, 6,800, continues to put up just really solid results. It's been a bit hit and miss as far as I think I'll take a look at defense in a little bit, but I want to say he was one of the guys who was taking a bunch of shot attempts and just not getting them on goals. So whatever. But yeah, this game's a little interesting. The main problem is Columbus is just an absolute mess. They scratched Marchenko last game. Why? We're not really sure. There's no word on what they're going to do. My guess is Marchenko draws back in. But yeah, just a weird thing. This team's weird. They always just find a way to suck the fun out of the sport. And Alex Nylander is now 3,800. So long live the Alex Nylander hat trick from Monday after we finished recording. and said he was a fine play on Tuesday, which he was. He was 20% owned on a 9-game slate and stunk. So yeah, that'll happen.
Yeah. No interest at all. I think Edmonton is slowly creeping into Florida levels of I'm not playing against them.
Yeah.
Just no one can handle McDavid. So even when you get up on Edmonton, now it's McDavid, just healthy doses. And it just, Columbus has absolutely nothing to answer for it. Columbus one's going to be pretty unowned here. I will think the entire team probably will be. Nylander's no longer as cheap as he was. I mean, I think Columbus one is going to win a slate at some point. I just don't think it's here. So no, thank you. It's too expensive, obviously, even though it's cheap. But again, I am very much keeping an eye on that because they're giving him a ton of run and they were dangerous. They were lethal. Gaudreau looks very good again. So, I had a chance to break the slate. It just didn't do it. Jenner had a ton of great attempts. Frosovich had 10 or 11 shot attempts. It didn't quite happen. So we can move on to a game that I'm also very interested in. This is another premium stack that I'm in on in New Jersey. The coach will not release Holtz to us, but Hughes with Bratt is something that I do like. So I might just start there with some builds that, obviously you're not getting Edmonton, but this is another premium stack that I really do like.
Yeah, for sure. St. Louis, continues to do this thing where it feels like they're a respectable hockey team, and then you look post game and you're like, oh, I guess they did kind of get killed in that game. And Tuesday was no different. They gave up 4 expected goals, mustering 1.2 expected goals for themselves. Now, I'll admit I did not watch much of the second period where a lot of the pressure occurred. But St. Louis felt like they were in the game in the first. They take a lead early in the second, and then it just absolutely crumbled. And then that happens for these guys. They are very bad defensively, so that's why New Jersey pops up on this list. Obviously, New Jersey's been producing expected goals. The actual goals have been tougher to come by for them, and that's what leads them to the situation that they're in. So, this is certainly a one-sided draw for me. I don't have much interest in attacking St. Louis. I know the top line is the top line, and I certainly will think about it. 6K Jordan Kyrou, that's somewhat attractive. But there's not a ton that really makes me want to target this matchup because, I don't think New Jersey's as bad as they've been. There's really no other recourse for me besides Hughes and Bratt, like you mentioned. So any interest in playing Luke Hughes, who remains at 4,100, getting over 20 minutes a night for the last little while now?
Yep, that's the third guy in, I think, in one of my favorite stacks of the night. So yes, and I think exactly what the perfect scenario here is that New Jersey does what they do every game. They give up a goal to Porchenko at 0% ownership immediately, right? And then it's all right, now they're shooting. And then I don't know, freaking Scandella jumps out there and the Russian scores 1, and you're down 2-0. And next thing you know, Jack Hughes has 12 shots on goal. Jesper Bratt has 3 assists. It's that's what you're looking for. And it's just the perfect matchup for it. St. Louis is ultra efficient. They find ways to score goals, but it seems like, how did they score so many goals? And New Jersey how did they give up so many goals? How did that? This is where that, and again, a bit of that is proven by the math. If you look at, the chart you already showed, if you look at, and some of it's a bit of, this just keeps happening over and over again. And I really don't think New Jersey is going to be as owned as Edmonton. I don't think they're going to be as owned as, what other team was I thinking? Oh, the Islanders. And honestly, probably not. I think Florida beats them too. So there's, we're looking at the 4th or 5th highest ownership spot. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you can argue if you want that Tampa could get there against the Flames team that's just moving assets. Again, I think there's enough for me to think, all right, probably not. All right. I've gone too far. We can move on.
Well, I mean, generally speaking, ownership will be pretty low across the board. Of course, 12 games, but also Tampa's only a -135 favorite. I was actually going to mention that when we got there. Which are we there? Nope, we're not quite there yet.
Pens caps.
But let's move over to Washington and Pittsburgh. we do have confirmed Washington lines. They traded Anthony Mantha, so Connor McMichael moves alongside. Well, I guess I'm not looking at them, which would have been useful before I started the sentence. But basically, McMichael loses Mantha as his line mate, and the LaPerriere, Ovi, and Wilson line will remain. So LaPerriere's kind of interesting. Centering Ovi is certainly a spot that I want to buy on. Actually, it's Protoss with that line, and Patches and Wilson with McMichael. Anyway, now the top 6 in Washington is handled. I did want to mention that, of course, Washington, creeps up the list because Pittsburgh's been playing some terrible hockey. Washington's been fine. Ovi appears to be, somewhat back in terms of his generation. So let's do a quick discussion about Hendrix LaPerriere. He is a former first rounder. He does feel like he was drafted to fit in the mold of a Nick Backstrom, Evgeny Kuznetsov type. And to say that, you're not playing LaPerriere on his own. We have not seen him yet jump into the top power play. It does seem like Strome, Strome is a fixture, obviously Ovi Carlson. And it does sort of feel as if with Mantha gone, that there's the possibility that it's LaPerriere, but man, it's you're really grasping at straws, I think, because Patches exists, Tom Wilson exists, and McMichael is McMichaeling. So yeah, I like Washington. I'm really hoping for some clarity on what that 5th man on the power play is, though, because if we get a super low on LaPerriere or something, I'm pretty interested in buying, even at his salary, which is 3,500. Yeah, top line.
I mean, I want to project Milano myself, but that feels like a bit of a grasping at straws. But it's okay. I'm allowed to. I can say whatever I want. It's my show. But again, there's an interesting piece to the puzzle here for sure. And Milano scored 3 straight games in a row. I believe one of them was on power play too. So maybe I'm just going off of completely off of results here. But whatever, right? It's going to be interesting. I don't think there's really a lot to cover on Washington right now. Like you're saying, it's going to be a bit of a mess, but they're cheap and they're a good mid-range stack. And there's going to be some incredible values, which I like more than others that I think people are going to play to help fit in some of those top end pieces. So I'm in on it for sure. I'm definitely going to keep an eye on what that ends up looking like for me. And I mean, I'm not disinterested entirely in Pittsburgh, but I just can't imagine actually paying 8,100 for Crosby, who I do think has been much better than results as of late. But, you really need that 3-4 point night out of him at 8K to pay off and give you a chance on a 12-game slate. And obviously, you can play Raquel, you can play Carlson or Letang. It just feels like they're pretty lifeless at this point. The bottom 6 is completely dust, which is why I'm a little bit more interested in Washington, because I think that some of these value pieces will just get matched up against true AHLers. So, yeah. Any thoughts on Pittsburgh in general of like the Eller, Crosby, Raquel line at power play correlated, yada, yada?
Yeah, I mean, there's I guess it's not an extreme worry, but there's always the risk that that role just does not, it's not as steady as, many roles. So obviously Eller was a sort of late promotion to that top line before last game. He was not super high owned as a result, but because the entire team was just flooding optimals, he was still like 10 to 12% owned. I think he's going to get a lot of ownership as a result, even on this slate. So that is my primary concern, because Pittsburgh is a pretty sizable favorite. I mentioned how, I was sort of leaning the other direction, but at just 3,500, Eller's got really good per minute stats this year. I think we did a deep dive a couple weeks ago on Eller where I was like, yeah, look, his, shots per 60 are like the highest of his career. Cause this guy's been around for, I think, well over a decade now. And he's just nothing special like that. That's really what it boils down to, but he's solid enough that projection systems will like him. So yeah, if you're stacking Pittsburgh, I would definitely play like the full stack. There's really no sense in one-offing a Sidney Crosby, of course. But it's not jumping to the top of my list because I like Washington here just in general.
Yeah, no, I think the argument of like, how much does Crosby help a guy like Raquel is very, very valid and definitely more than I think his price tag, especially if you're playing it all. But I also think it's like, how much does Raquel versus Gensel, that replacement, change things? And I think it's more than people are willing to give Gensel and others and Russ credit for. So I'm fine with just fading Pittsburgh and hoping that we can find some value in Washington that gets power play run, that just is going to be going out there again against the Scranton Wilkes-Barre Penguins, and the corpse of Jeff Carter. So yeah, I'm fine with that. Former head coach John Gruden is going to be playing third line minutes for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I didn't know he played hockey.
I mean, it's a late career renaissance for our guy Gruden here.
Chucky.
Yeah, I think we're on TJ Oshie watch. I believe I saw a tweet, but I don't think he's likely to return this week at very least. So I will say sort of officially, obviously I like Ovi. LePerriere is of high interest to me. I think McMichael and Patches are the two most likely guys to see the power play one time alongside the sort of core three. Now, there's Tom Wilson mix in there. I don't know. So, again, you got to wait to see. Last time we saw them, it was against Arizona and they got killed. So they could just change up everything from that game. But I do like McMichael and Patches just as a theoretical grouping. Mantha was doing really well with McMichael, and I think Patches has a similar, shoot and score type skill set. So that's where I'm looking, and ideally we get some sort of clarity in the morning on Thursday. So let's head over to Calgary and Tampa. I want to say Tampa was... I wanted to bring this up. Yep. Tampa. Oh, wow. Tampa just moved from -145 to -155. So that line is steaming upward without Hanifin. Yeah. So yeah, maybe Tampa does get up as sort of team total wise. But in any case, Tampa news: Point, Stamkos, Kucherov practice today as a line. Obviously, they are fully correlated on the top power play. And that is where you would be interested in. Hagel falls off. He's gotten more expensive. So just not really interested there. And I don't think there's any depth to speak of in Tampa that's relevant. However, we got to point out that this Calgary team is playing some decent hockey. They're getting fantastic goaltending. So how does this game profile for you? Are you worried about Tampa? Are you interested in some Calgary value? What's going on here?
No, I mean, it's not the worst game in the world, which is why I was like, oh, maybe if people like Tampa won, then and maybe it will get a little bit more than we think. I definitely like Tampa won a lot. The last time out, the Flames went Kuzmenko, Kadri, and Pospisil, and Kuzmenko, while only playing 16 minutes, scored 2 goals, one on the first power play, one on the second power play. It was Mackenzie Weegar on that top unit. We'll keep an eye on all of that. It's just kind of, feels like things could change. A guy like Oscar Schilling.
Yeah, we have Calgary news. So, that's where I was. So Coronado's back. It looks like Coronado will be on the top line with Pospisil likely being suspended.
Yeah. That's true. I forgot about that.
So we're assuming Pospisil gets suspended, but I don't believe we have that news. Coronado alongside Sharangovich and Huberdeau, and then Kadri with Kuzmenko. So yeah, Zari's not on the trip. So yeah, I mean they're dropping like flies here. Obviously the Coleman, Backlund, Mangiapane line, it remains intact. They're eating a ton of minutes. I still really like Andrew Mangiapane. His rates are popping. He's been producing finally. It's not crazy, but for 3,400, if a guy gets you 8, you're comfortable with it. And Mangiapane's shooting again. He's getting some power play time with all these injuries and trades. So yeah, there's I think a lot to like here. You mentioned the other big beneficiary of the Hanifin deal, which is Oliver Chillington. I mean, this dude's story is awesome. He left the league basically on his own, on his own accord for mental health reasons. and he comes back and he's just flying. So he was a really pedigreed prospect, and to sort of see him sort of jump right back in the saddle, he's got a great opportunity here to keep things going at 3,300. So yeah, I don't know, anything you want to add on top of that?
No, just he's one of the better skaters I've seen, so there's upside there.
Yeah,
Gets a bigger role, maybe power play
indeed.
too. Rates are fine, so definitely consider. Yeah, I'm interested here, but I'm definitely more interested in the Tampa side of things. They're at home, they can create some mismatches. This Flames team definitely has a number of guys that are, what's their AHL team? Abbotsford. Abbotsford still?
No.
No,
Oh,
it's
they're
not. What is
Calgary.
it? I can't.
Yeah.
Oh, they're also
They're
Calgary.
they're
Yeah,
yeah.
I was gonna
Well,
say the
they were the
Wranglers, but
Abbotsford Heat.
yeah,
Yeah, but
and now they're like
obviously they
the Calgary
okay.
Wranglers. But okay, yeah. The point
Coronado.
being on all of this, yeah, Coronado is in play on the other side of things, but I am actually pretty interested in Tampa one. Like I think that like my lineups at the end of the day are going to be centralized around Tampa, New Jersey over Edmonton and Florida, and I will definitely be throwing things at the wall when Edmonton, Florida smash. So you just play the other side of that, you'll be good.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, we talked about Matt Coronado to begin the season, but if you're somehow new, if you somehow missed that, if you forget it, dude came out of college as one of the better offensive prospects in the league, in my opinion. Um, awesome shot profile, produced a ton in the NCAA, and he didn't make the team out of camp. Well, I guess he did for a bit, but he didn't play much.
Yeah.
And then he went down to the minors, and in 40 games has 42 points and 137 shots on goal. That's over 3 shots per game. Pretty much doing exactly what they would want him to, I think, from an organizational perspective. And with him getting the call up, with Pospisil almost certainly being suspended, he has a great opportunity to step into. And 2,500, that's, it's going to be a value that I will not be able to turn down personally. But of course, there's inherent risk to playing prospects like this. We've seen him so far in the NHL, getting some decent games, some decent run, but really not having much production to go along with it at this point. So I just wanted to point him out as like one of the top guys on the slate from a point per dollar
Absolutely.
perspective.
And we already
All right.
talked about who he's playing with, and those are guys that are going to play. Like he's going to play with Huberto and Sharangovich. Those are
And they
guys
will
that will play
pass.
many, and they will pass. Yep. Yep. So okay, Buffalo and Nashville. Are you ready?
Yeah, have we
You're,
discussed on the pod how Huberto has like 25 points in 25 games or something over his last stretch? Or was that offline
I,
where we did that? Because
I,
that's a
I,
thing.
I, every time you bring up Huberto being better, I just tune you out personally. And I know you're right.
Okay.
I just don't want to hear it
Yeah.
because it does not confirm my priors. So you can
Yeah.
talk about it. I'm
Like
just gonna plug my headphones, take them out.
it's just a little weird, So
Yeah.
Huberto 4K, just an extreme value. And you go through his game logs and you're like, yeah, for a $4,000 player, I'm
Honestly,
happy if he gets me
you're
14.
you're really making a good case to just Huberto Coronado full Tampa one because they're probably not going to be putting that line out there against Tampa one. They're going to be putting backline as much as possible. They can't fully control it, but I don't think that is the dumbest thing. What's Tampa's problem? Depth. Who are they going to be out against? Tampa depth. Like you've built a very nice little game stack there, and you can still get a decent mid-range stack, in my opinion. So let's get over to the
Sick.
garbage savers if you're ready.
Yes, DJ, you just made my clip for this show so much easier. So good summary there. Buffalo, Nashville. Yeah, I mean, Nashville just continues to roll. They finally got taken down in overtime by Montreal, but it does feel like this Nashville team is going to make the playoffs. DJ, will the Buffalo Sabres be making the playoffs? Just a quick check here.
Yeah. No.
Okay,
Most certainly not.
darn.
They are I think the death watch is at 3. 3 more regulation losses and we can finally completely kiss it goodbye. But so 2 after tomorrow probably. Nashville is pretty good. I think that's just sometimes this garbage just happens. And I think Andrew Burnett's just a good coach. I think he's a very gifted offensive mind and he has found a way to produce a very strong power play no matter who rolls through it. Guys that have never really had these top producing power play roles outside of Yossi and Forsberg. And they have found a way to have 4 lines contribute and defensemen jump up and make plays and play sound enough in front of a great goaltender that they're just a good team. There's really, again, it's frustrating to be a fan of teams like, Buffalo, New Jersey, Ottawa, and to sit here and watch this Nashville team that everyone counted out before the season started. I probably self-included. I think I was like, man, I remember I was like, they're going to be a lot of fun, but they're not going to be great. And they're fun and great. And it's just like, great. And they're fine here. I'm not going to play it just because, again, I like other stacks more. I actually do respect Buffalo defensively a little bit because their problem really isn't defense and goaltending right now. It's scoring, the opposite of last year, because bad teams just find a way to be bad. So, yeah, I'm going to probably just cross this one out. But I'm not saying you're stupid for playing Nashville.
Yeah, the Sabres on the classic swing of a game in Toronto, followed by a back-to-back in Nashville. So, distance-wise,
Normal.
it's not that crazy, but just a weird scheduling quirk. Yeah, I mean, Forsberg probably is in the Matthew Tkachuk range at this point, where it's like, I mean, what's this guy got to do to get a decent price tag around here? So he makes sense.
He is,
Roman Yossi.
God, just best ball bags are packed. I'm so high on him, and he's just like, oh, let me advance some teams right there, my friend.
Well,
Jimmy,
congratulations.
off. Bye, Jimmy.
Yeah, well, me too. All right. Ryan O'Reilly, put up the old 30 bomb last slate. That always helps when Ryan O'Reilly does that for your fantasy team. But he and Nyquist are both pretty cheap. They're pretty involved, offensively. So no problem stacking into the elite guys on Nashville. Any depth pieces stand out to you? Did the Cody Glass carousel come to a halt last game?
I mean, did you watch that game at all? I was actually watching.
I watched a lot of it. Yeah,
he is. I mean, like if you pull it, like 3 power play shots, one of them I thought was off the post. They didn't give him the post, I guess, but he is lethal from where he is because everyone funnels to Forsberg and he's right there to take it down low. So I think that you're totally fine to say I want Yossi, I want Forsberg. I can't afford O'Reilly and Gustav Nyquist, which is kind of crazy. I think you could probably find a way to get at least one of them in the mix, but you can play Cody Glass. He is very, very utilized on that power play. And there's a reason he just had a hat trick. It's because they are, hey, shoot the puck. You got a shot. Like he can shoot. So shoot the puck. You got a shot. That made great job there.
And the main concern I have, of course, is that they basically have 3 third lines behind this top line. So Glass's minutes outside of the power play are pretty on
what's actually
from day to day.
What's funny about that? Yeah, last game, and you're probably thinking, Forsberg did get 4 shots on goal. He didn't have a single shot attempt on the power play, and they had a good amount of run. That's interesting. I mean, again, teams just have to be keying in on it now. That they just, Forsberg plays that, Eichel-ish, Ovechkin-ish almost spot. And I mean, teams are just allowing guys like Glass and O'Reilly and Nyquist to get open because they're afraid of the best goal scorer on this team. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, makes sense. So next up we have Minnesota and Arizona. Arizona got back Clayton Keller. Didn't matter much. They lost to Chicago, which, as you noted, is pretty hard to do. So I imagine Minnesota, gets some attention as a result.
Yeah.
We do have confirmed that the top line for Minnesota remains intact. So that seems like what you want to go with. It looked like Zuccarello also would be, would play. He missed last game for a personal reason. So yeah, I don't have any interest in Arizona here.
No.
Keller came back. He played 22 minutes, but he's priced way up for just, what he offers, 6,300. I don't think that's relevant in this type of a matchup. And guys like Schmaltz and, Dursey, they just feel a bit fairly priced for most matchups and just not really interested personally.
I mean, the Arizona note here is the same as the Columbus. It's like, okay, the band's back together. It feels like a bit, top line, top power play, Hayton, Schmaltz, Keller, and ended up switching back to that later in the game. But I think that'll stick. maybe another slate that wins you one. I don't find it here, but Hayton at 3,300 definitely is affordable. So like you could maybe take a look at that on the other side of things if you are going all the way at Minnesota. But I'm kind of all or nothing on Minnesota here. You just play the full stack. I know your feelings on Brock Faber. You don't have to do it. It's almost 5K. It's 4,900 is just a bit much in my opinion.
Yep. Just Brock Faber doing Brock Faber things. Yeah, good note on Arizona 1. I suppose that would be the main reason to pay attention to news in this game because Hayton is obviously a good value if he's with Schmaltz and Keller. Because that power play run was unexpected as well.
Yep, and then Gunther, Jersey. Yep. So yeah, I think I'm like, again, if you're ranking stacks, like where does Minnesota 1 rank for you? But you know, I wonder, do they get as much ownership as Edmonton? Do they get as much ownership as Florida?
I don't think they can because they finally addressed the pricing on these guys. You know, a week ago, Boldy was 6K, and now he's 7K. Kaprizov, same deal. He was, in the low 8s, high 7s. He's now 8,800. So I do think they really nipped this pricing week a bit. And so for that reason, I don't feel strongly about Minnesota being, the top stack. And I think you need them to be the top stack if you are going to spend just an ungodly amount of salary on these 3 guys. I mean, you plug in any goalie and, you're left with less than 4,000 per roster spot, depending on which goalie you have,
which is,
that could be way less.
Doable. But yeah, it's doable, but it's not.
It's doable, but it's not fun.
Agreed.
It's not fun. That's for sure.
Yeah. So we can move on. I have no notes on anything else Minnesota wise. They're probably top line or nothing. Vancouver at Vegas.
Sorry, one more thing Arizona wise. We are expecting Zucker to be traded, which I guess is why Heaton made the power play. And we're also expecting Matt Dumba to be moved. We could see other guys scratched for Arizona. So we might get some extreme value. Troy Stetcher stands out if we see multiple D-men scratch. 2,500. He's just a guy who is constantly involved in blocking shots, and so whatever. All right, so Vancouver, Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna probably go to I think the lowest total on the entire slate, and just jam into it. I know Vegas has been bad, but I think that they're still really good, and they just got a little bit better. I think Noah Hannefin's a player. It's basically a pick 'em. It's a 6 over under. I think I lean the under on that myself, and it's not all that cheap, especially to get some of the players that actually have 12 game slate breaking upside. Just it's gonna be a no for me here on the entire thing. And if you want to talk about the lineup or whatever, we can for a minute. But I don't know, just a no.
Pedersen feels weirdly inexpensive at 7,400, and I know it's especially if Hannafin's not playing. I mean, without Martinez, we could see Vegas with a true, they're not terrible. These guys aren't horrible. I saw Miromanov is in the trade, so I don't know, Hutton, Haig, McNabb, Pietrangelo, Theodore. It's not the craziest, D core you've ever seen. It's not terrible. But Pedersen 7,400. You also get really good stacking options next to him at really cheap in Suter and Höglander. So it's unlikely to hit in a huge way, but they're cheap enough to where if they do hit, they're super powerful. And obviously Pedersen is just, he's a dynamic hockey player. So 7,400 just feels a bit jarring considering how bad Vegas has been. They've been giving up to absolutely everybody over the last stretch. And of course you can always run that back with the Jack Eichel or Shea Theodore, who just continue to put up points. Well, Theodore does, and then Eichel returned to a 5-shot bonus, which, you do like to see after a long absence from Jack. But yeah, nothing really of super importance otherwise. Keeping an eye on a Elias Lindholm trade, that would be pretty fun if he got moved in an alternate deal. But anyway, Ottawa, LA, let's close out these final 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like another one I just don't think I'm going to get there on, and the total is pretty high. Kings come in as a minus 192 and a favored 6.5. And it feels like there's getting more concentration of where you might want to go with Arvidsson and Kempe out. And Fiala is still very cheap. He burned up everyone that played him. you know, and I feel like he may have been somewhat popular, especially in a late slate type of scenario. But I could go back to the well on that here, you know, more Fiala to know. I'm not saying play all together. You don't have to, but that's kind of the offense, in my opinion. And I am very much not afraid to play against Ottawa. So I'm interested in that, and everything else I'm kind of just like, I don't really think it's necessary. Ottawa on a back-to-back in a already, you know, admittedly bad matchup. Pinto is priced out of consideration, in my opinion, even though I bet him on everything the, you know, previous night. But you're kind of tethering him to Brady. You're tethering him to, again, maybe a defenseman, and you're kind of spending most of your cap at that point. So I will pass it back to you with everything I said, and you're just any interest in. Well, I guess let's find out what Ottawa is first against Anaheim, but any interest in like a Stutzel situation as his price has finally hit rock bottom, I think.
Yeah, on this slate, no, I don't have any interest in Tim
Cool.
Stützle or anyone really.
Perfect.
You know, on a smaller slate, sure, late slate, you know, whatever. It's in consideration. I just wanted to point out that Kevin Fiala has not really been priced up to how he's been playing. Now, of course, you know, not advancing any of my Kevin Fiala has been extremely painful for the playoff best puck. So I don't know if I'll be able to bet on him on this slate, just on that thesis alone. But in terms of actually looking at things from a, you know, logical standpoint, the guys priced above him, or the guys who are scoring better than him in their underlyings, are Sam Bennett and Brandon Hagel. Both those dudes are power play too. You know, we're not expecting the offense to run through those guys. Kevin Fiala, on the other hand, the offense runs through Kevin Fiala. Like, their offense right now is Kevin Fiala. So I like Fiala. I like Byfield as well. He doesn't have quite as strong of the sort of underlyings, but, you know, the offense flowing through him certainly does apply for Byfield, playing upwards of 20 minutes with their current setup, which I think will stick. You know, they've been rolling 11-7 with all their injuries up front, and that allows them to play, you know, Brant Clark and use him as sort of a chess piece, which I don't hate. So, you know, let's see. Brant Clark is a $4,800 wing on this slate. Very funny, but you can see here that
7 minutes.
The minutes aren't there, but that gets the forwards a ton of run in Fiala.
I will. I just want to say a direct message to Jim Hiller. Jim, you're allowed to play Trevor Moore on the first power play if you want to. You don't have to play Pierre-Luc Dubois there because he's bad. It's okay. Like, you can do it. I just want to let you know that. If you're listening, I'm sure you are. And that would just make me so happy. But they're not going to do it. So you are betting on, if you are going with like a Fiala, Danault, Moore, you're basically saying Danault is very, very good and can help to dominate whatever line they go out against. And Fiala and Moore can have fun at 5-on-5. And hopefully you find something on the power play through one of them. So, yeah. That's it for this game for me, though. We can keep moving. You want to get to dinner, and Ottawa is stinky.
Yes, I firmly disagree with you on the Moore Dubois thing, but you know that's fine.
Why? Why not? They're not scoring on the power play. Just try something. It could be fun.
Trevor Moore will not help you convert chances into goals. I'm sorry if I need to be the one to
He'll shoot the puck, though. Who is shooting? Like, Kempe comes out. Why not Trevor Moore to shoot now on the power play? Like, I don't. Well, like, you can tell me. But normally there's a couple guys.
Well, Kevin Fiala wasn't shooting all season, and then he decided to start shooting once Kempe went out. Which, you know,
okay, I'm gonna let you have this. I'm gonna say I don't know. I like Trevor Moore as a player. I think he can shoot the puck, and I don't know why you're not giving him a chance. Let's talk about the Chalklanders if you're ready.
Okay, sure. Yeah, let's do that. San Jose.
You can't prove me wrong. You can't prove me wrong because you're never going to see it. So it's just.
Well, San Jose gave up 7 goals in just. What?
You know what's funny?
Happened? Jake Ottinger. Dude, what the hell happened?
Like, why did Johnston had 3 goals and hit the post twice. Like, he could have had 5. Like, dude, it was
it's unbelievable.
It's so
and
dumb.
San Jose scored 6.
So incredibly dumb. Yeah. It's just
so.
Dallas just kept taking penalties. Like, they just kept going to the box, and Ottinger's like, "What if I never make a save?" And they're like,
Well, then we'll just keep taking penalties. Yeah.
We'll just keep.
I don't know. So the top line in the Islanders is going to be obnoxiously owned. Like, we don't even have the situation where we've had for the last week in Dallas playing San Jose twice, where it's been okay. You can play the top line that kind of stinks, and then there's this third line that's pretty good, but they're cheap and they're weird center. There's none of this here. The Islanders are a one-line team, Kyle Palmieri aside, and they are going to be monstrously owned here. That is a decision you must make for yourself. San Jose, I believe, will be without Eklund. He looked really weird leaving the ice on the overtime winner. Seemed like some non-contact thing, which is never a good sign. And he was like their one beacon of hope on this, on this treacherous journey of a season. So San Jose is a one-line team. The Islanders are a one-line team. I don't know. What do we do here? Anything?
No, there's a part of me that knows tomorrow I'm going to continue to just try to talk myself off of the Islanders one because of ownership. And another part of me that knows it's totally justifiable to play. So I think I'm just going to try and hope that I'm able to make a decision, because again, like you're saying, it's all New York Islanders won, but in a game where they won 4-2, and like you're saying, they were largely dominant for the majority of that game. They kind of started rolling four lines again. So if you think they're going to get up, I don't think we're going to see the absorbent amount of minutes from that first line. And they weren't very good defensively. They were the line out there for 2 against, albeit, better players were out against them as well. But I think you need San Jose to score. And I think people will convince themselves that San Jose can score against this Islanders team. I'm just not going to do that. So I'm going to pray again, do the same thing I did for whatever game I was talking about earlier. What?
I don't think that's crazy. I mean, this top line is legitimately good.
No, they've been amazing. They've been amazing. But again, it's not crazy. I am saying that I'm trying to convince myself now and later that San Jose will not be able to score for this one game, and the Islanders end up rolling four lines, and Engvall and Holmstrom are just out there for like 20 minutes for some dumb reason. And Oliver Wahlstrom is just hopefully traded. And I just think I'm going to fade it. I'm going to try to fade it, but it's an objectively great play, except the ownership's going to be to the moon. Then it's like, now you have to balance.
Yeah. If we get any sort of confirmation on Eklund's status, I assume he's out. Luke Cunnin should play second line. That would be somewhat interesting. Mike Hoffman would draw into the top power play, presumably as well. So there's just a couple options on top of Philip Zadina, who I think is a better play if Eklund does play in this game, because Zadina's been playing on the Eklund line, and because Eklund is very good, and whatever else, Zadina's really taken advantage of that. But it is worth pointing out that on the other end of this, extreme Islanders top heaviness, there are some good values on San Jose that could work themselves out in a nice little game stack if you wanted to take advantage of it. So let's do top stacks, guarantee goals.
Yeah. Do you think that last question, will that be popular, you think, like running it back with San Jose, or do you think that's kind of a bit of I think I was going to say the skeleton key. And instead of you calling me stupid, when I say something stupid, I'm just going to ask you first. But yeah, I don't think people are going to play the other side of this. So I think if you're playing the Islanders, I'd almost make it a rule, because again, you're playing New York Islanders one. You need them out there all game. You need them to basically have the terrible goaltending run of Ottinger, and you have a chance. Let's do it. Top stacks, guarantee goals. And then we'll get out of here.
Okay.
You up first?
Yeah, I think at the mid tier, I want to go with Washington. So give me Ovi, give me John Carlson, and give me Hendrix Leperrier. But I do reserve the right to make that Connor McMichael if we get McMichael power play 1 confirmed, because that's more important to me than the 5-on-5-ness of Leperrier, given his profile as a pass first sort of center. But I like that for the value it creates, and for some leverage off of what I think will be a relatively owned Pittsburgh 1.
I'm going to do the Hughes Brat. I already said I was going to do it, so I'll just grab it right now, and it almost kind of pairs nicely with what you just. Well, not really, but whatever. I'll just say that Hughes Brat.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, let's go with Elias Pettersson. Build around him. So I think I'm just going to keep it simple and play his 5-on-5 line. That they've been in some pretty low scoring games of late. But ideally, Vegas would do something to sort of push them out of that mold. But I would expect Patterson to play upwards of 20 minutes. He's just 7,400, and he gets 2 sub 4K line mates in Pia Suter and Niels Hoglander, who I think are both perfectly fine here. So there's a couple of decent mid-tier value stacks for you.
All right. I'm just going to do the LA2 full 5-on-5 to know more Fiala. It does fit with a cheaper goalie, and you'll just punt D center. And that my lineup actually does fit, which I like to try to do. Goals, last time we were 1 for 4, and then I went through puck luck stuff and some of my own stuff, and I picked 3 winners. So I'm going to give myself a nice big I won. But you nailed Burakovsky, which was the far and away, it was like 5-1. So thank you. And for everyone that tailed that bet, well, also thank you for finding. So we ended up being profitable on them if you straight bet them all. Like, of course I did.
Awesome. Well, yeah, straight betting DJ over here. All right, I'll take the first guarantee goal. Brock Nelson. He's scoring 6,700. He's the cheapest of the group between Barzal, Horvat, and Nelson, and he's been playing the best. He's got the most shot attempts. He's got the most expected fantasy points. So why not take a minor value? But ultimately, you're probably not playing a one-off Brock Nelson in any case. But from a betting perspective, I do like Brock Nelson a lot here.
Yeah, that's a. I mean, I was honest. It's funny because I was like, which one of the Islanders? And then you just said Brock Nelson. I'm like, you got there. Nice call. I definitely do agree. I will go with. Hold on 1 second. I just want to look at the price. What is? Oh my God! I was going to say someone on Edmonton, and is Draisaitl Coronado? No, Hyman Coronado. I'll just do Hyman Coronado. I think I can do that. That'll work.
You're going back. You're ready to be burned by Hyman again. Okay.
And good Coronado. They're both going to burn me.
Yeah. No. All right. Let's go Barrett Hayton. Now that you mentioned he's on the top line, top power play, I expect that to stick. That felt like where this was heading all along since he returned from injury. And yeah, I think Barrett Hayton rules. I really liked his game last year. He was one of the guys that was higher on coming into the year, and it never really materialized. He took a pretty brutal injury rather early on. Maybe he's back in his, sort of the same realm that he was last year, where he was an incredibly useful asset. Priced at just 3,300 on this slate in an unimposing home spot, yeah, they probably run out Kraus and friends against the top line. And so the rest of Minnesota, I'm not worried about. So give me Barrett Hayton and Brock Nelson for my guaranteed goals. And DJ, you had Hyman and Coronado. So yeah, anything else you want to say before we close out?
Keep an eye on our YouTube. I'm going to test a few things, including tomorrow I'm going to post a video of basically just me talking and ripping, and for a first degenerate gambler show, I'm going to call it, or whatever. You'll see. It'll all be up there. So follow us or subscribe on YouTube. We're just under 200, and I'm going to be posting more videos. And I might also just look into doing a bit of a condensed podcast, which would just probably be the last 5 minutes or so. But we'll figure that out. But the podcast is also there.
Yeah. And that is in the link. That link is in the description of this podcast, or if you're on YouTube, what's up? All right. So that'll do it from us. I'm at Fake Moods on Twitter. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94. The podcast is at Morningscape Pod. DM us if you want in on the Discord. It's free. It's a good time. And that'll do it. So thank you all for listening. From Doug, from DJ, from myself. Have a good slate, everybody. And we will see ya.